in the second half of the 1970s, rock and roll became increasingly compact, stylistically compact, in the sense that where the first half of the decade had been about spreading out into a variety of different styles, specialty styles coming out of psychedelia, the second half of the decade started to be about bringing some of these styles together into more of a kind of mainstream style. Critics of this music would call it corporate rock and would see this synthesis as a kind of a cynical approach to squeeze all the possible album sales out of everything, a kind of a dumbing down of the music, a constraining of the possibilities. But in opposition to that, you really only have to look at what's happened to the classic rock format in the years since, and so much of the music from the end of the 1970s is really defined, are the tunes that really define the notion of what classic rock really is. So there are two sides to that story as we talk about in the chapter. A great example of what might be criticized either as corporate rock or we might think of as late 70s mainstream rock is Foreigner's Feels Like the First Time, a tune that came out in mid-1977, so right in the middle of the second half of the 1970s. The tune itself is a modified compound AABA form. It's modified in an interesting kind of way I'll talk about in just a second, but the tune starts out with an introduction that gives us just the guitar riff by itself, and then we get the drums and the bass coming in, and then finally the synthesizer sequencing going on over the top, very much reminiscent of maybe some of the prog rock bands from earlier in the 1970s. Then we come in at about 27 seconds with the first verse very quiet. Right, we get Lou Gramm, the singer of the group, delivering the verse, and as the verse unfolds, it keeps the music keeps moving up a whole step as we move from the key of G to A to B. As it continues to go up, it gets a little bit louder until it finally hits the chorus, and then it's, you know, full bore. Everybody's in, and the chorus is this sort of sing-along chorus, the stadium anthem kind of chorus, and it's as loud as it's going to be. So that gives us our first verse and chorus, contrasting verse and chorus, and then the next A section comes back, it pulls back again. It doesn't pull all the way back to where it was at the beginning of the first verse, but pulls back again, and then builds up. And just about the time you think you're going to get that great sing-along chorus, inserted between the verse and the chorus is this bridge, almost a classical music sounding bridge that appears at 1 minute and 56 seconds, something clearly derived from the prog rock of earlier, but with a kind of bluesy or sort of more soulful kind of feel to it that maybe comes from the blues rock of people like the Allman Brothers and Led Zeppelin and Deep Purple, right? But as he comes to the end of that bridge, which really kind of acts as a parenthesis, really, it's almost like inserting something between the verse and the chorus. It moves directly onto the chorus where it should have gone maybe in the first place, and you get the second time to the chorus. And then we get a contrasting B section. That has really constituted our first A and our second A section. Now we get this contrasting B section, 8 measures of music, where we get this kind of virtuosic guitar solo that requires some sort of pulling off as it goes, guitar pull-offs as it goes down. And then to end it, the A section returns, but like in a lot of these compound AABA forms, when the A section returns, you get just the chorus, not the verse and the chorus, and of course it fades out on the chorus. You get an overall AABA with the second A section inserting a kind of surprise bridge, a kind of parenthetical insertion, and the last A section giving us only the chorus. That's Foreigner's Feels Like the First Time.